Welcome back to the vBrownbag stage here at VMworld 2015. I'm Alistair Cook, and this is the Virtualization Practice panel. And it's really special for me because this is the first time I've actually been on the show when I'm the guy at the background organizing it. And also extra special that I've just joined the Virtualization Practice as an analyst. So these are now my co-workers, colleagues, call them what you like. I'd like to just walk across and get you guys to introduce yourselves. So Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Howarth. I live in the UK. For my sins, you could probably tell from my fantastic accent. I've been with the Virtualization Practice 5, 6, 7, 8, however,
How many
a fair
lifetimes?
few years. It feels a lot of lifetimes. I'm working with Ed for a long time. What do you expect?
I'm Edward Halekty. I'm an analyst, well, the principal analyst, one of the principal analysts at the Virtualization Practice, kind of own the show, so look us up, www.virtualizationpractice.com. I'm at TexIWill on Twitter.
Way to just get that in there. All right. My name's Steve Beaver. I was part of the original crew that started with Ed, and it's been a fun ride. So I'm originally from Florida, and
You're still in Florida.
I thought you were still in Florida.
I'm losing track now. It's all over the place. I guess that's about it.
Your age is showing, Steve.
Yes.
Yeah, we've just had a conversation about that.
Yes,
You know,
we did.
we are definitely getting grey beards now without the beards.
See, I moved back to Texas to lose all the frost, and it hasn't worked yet.
Move somewhere warm to clean it off. Yeah, I live somewhere warm and the frost is still growing, but it's growing on the bottom for me rather than the top of my head.
It looks like the sheep have been at your head again, mate.
You know, so we've been
Trust
coming to
Mr.
this for
Anderson.
about a decade now. So
My first was 2008.
what's the biggest changes you guys have seen in the past decade?
More people,
That too.
more community.
More everything, really. It's just getting bigger and bigger. But the good thing about it is, even though it's getting bigger and bigger, it's still not lost that personal touch. You know, I've been coming here since 2008, and you see people that you met at 2008, and it's like you've never left their doors. You know, it just really is just one great big community.
Show floor has gotten harder to walk. It used to only take me a couple of hours. Now it takes me like a whole day.
You have to quarter it up and do
That could be an age thing, though, Ed.
Right, could be.
So, speaking of the show floor, were there any things that stood out for you on the show floor? New things, different things, people that you didn't expect to see that were here?
For me personally, there was nothing that bit me and said, "Look at me, how awesome am I?" There's things that interested me. One of the problems is a lot of the things here I knew about already beforehand, and it was a case of just getting to know more about them. One of the things that I did like from a technology perspective is Ravello. They won Best of Show this year, and to be honest, I think they deserved it. What they do is pretty awesome tech, especially as it's a ESX hypervisor nested on top of Zen. Sorry, not Zen, KVM.
It's Zen, actually.
It is. It's
Zen.
AWS, isn't it?
Well, it's Zen
Isn't it
or
Zen?
Google Compute, which is I don't know what that is. No one knows.
I think Google Compute might be KVM-ish.
Yeah.
One is
like that.
KVM, the other is Zen, and Ravello have written their own hypervisor that sits on top of either of those to then provide ESX on top of that.
Exactly.
And it sits on top of ESXi if you wanted it to. It can't,
They haven't offered me that yet.
but it can.
Yeah. Every time I go into my Ravello environment, I expect to see Leonardo DiCaprio and his little spinning top. It seriously is Inception.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's cool. Actually, when I was on the show floor, I always go to the edges first. Edges and back wall, because that's where all the new stuff is. What I saw on the show floor is companies that you would not normally see because they target different organizations, like MSPs. They don't target the end user consumer or enterprises directly. So one of them was Datto. I didn't expect to see them on the show floor. I'm glad they're here. But you don't see their competitors, which is actually rather intriguing.
Yeah, so these are companies that produce a service that's white labeled into cloud providers. They go out to the end consumers with the branding of the cloud provider. And so it's invisible to the consumer that
Who
they're
they
using
are.
this technology.
Yeah.
And yeah, Datto is one that's been through some.
I think
lot of
that's
progress.
more of a show of the maturity of the virtualization sector, in that these people who are hidden behind MSPs because they were the main large-scale environments are now moving forward because cloud is starting to get adopted within private environments, on premises. You know,
Stay on premise.
I will stay on point just for you, Edward.
Thank you.
So these hidden vendors who have got very good technology are actually starting to turn up within the sphere of the more, it's not consumer level is not the right environment to say, but from their perspective, they are consumers.
Exactly. That's actually a big change, and that's what I saw. On the other side, new technology, there's a lot of it out there, but unfortunately, being an analyst, we get briefed on this stuff all the time, so we find out about months beforehand. What I wanted to find out is, I would love to find more about the VMware Photon platform. That would have been, there's very little about it, even on the show floor.
That and Enzo and also Bonneville, those are the three big things that would have interested me, and it's like, we don't admit it exists almost. It's a shame, because it's
really cool tech.
It is really cool tech.
I want it. I mean, I want to put it in my lab to play with it. It's what I need.
So, Steve, what have you seen from the show floor?
A lot more automation out of a box solutions. So it's getting to the point where you're not seeing a lot of smaller organizations that can code and keep up with this, but still want the automation in their environment, and there's a lot more companies that are presenting it out. And for me, each year is a game of who got bought by who, or who's going to get bought by who.
Have you marked all your cards yet? You said bingo.
Never quite hit bingo. Did you get there?
I was almost there. I was a bit disappointed that leverage wasn't on the card.
Well, just feed your big bingo card suggestions back to me, because the vBrownbag crew created the buzzword bingo cards for the hang space this year, and they went so well that I think we'll do them again next year, but with a better vendor for the stickers so you can actually use the stickers.
Well, it would be really cool is to do, I mean, when you talk about companies that get bought, when we first started the virtualization practice, we actually did this exercises. A lot of our older sponsors have been bought by somebody.
I used to do that basically at the end of every year, or just before VMworld. I used to do a post of who's who and where are they now series. I think it might be an idea to actually revisit that, because it would be interesting.
Well, since we're going to Vegas next year, it's time to lay some wagers down.
Yeah, Vegas, baby.
And that would be interesting.
I wonder if Microsoft will be there. I could do with some free chips.
Speaking of Microsoft, I think they're going to define the IT a la carte going forward. You're just going to order what service you need, and how much is that going to change the local IT guys needed?
I think AWS is going to start to struggle once the machine that Microsoft are in terms of Azure actually starts to kick in. Since Nadella took over there's been a complete shift in focus. They're a dark horse that are now starting to show their true colors, I think.
But the trouble with them and for Amazon is they're real easy to get into their environment. Getting back out with data intact, not
Actually,
so much.
you can. You just use the right tools. I mean, it's there and back again, to quote Tolkien, data protection, and you can get in and out of stuff in and out of Office and stuff and other companies and other clouds very easily these days. And you need to just use those, because if you don't, you're stuck.
At an ISAS level, yeah, I agree with you. It's quite difficult to get stuff in and out. But from a perspective of, an ISAS is just a machine, they're throwaway at the end of the day. As long as you can get hold of your data, you should be okay. Now, you can script that out, you can manage that within the application. Getting your data out shouldn't really be that much of a problem.
But it's definitely not as easy as getting in.
Oh, getting in is very, very easy. Yeah.
And you've got to be watchful of the costs of the getting out, because that's the classic one for AWS, is pushing in is free, pulling out is very expensive.
It's not just that also, it's also you really do need to, you do need to do your research onto your usage costs. It is very, very, very quickly, very easy to rack up big numbers.
Well, that's actually any cloud, including Azure.
Indeed,
all of them
any
are like
all
that.
clouds.
You got to pay attention. One of the things is part of, you're going to transform your environment, and this is something that actually came out a lot, is a lot of the tools are starting to really bake in showback. And when you turn them on, showback's the first thing people are looking at these days. So the industry has changed a lot. It's no longer just getting it in. It's like, how much is it going to cost me, predictive costs, and so forth. And that's actually becoming much more. There's 3 or 4 companies on the show floor that's all they do.
Which is very, very valid. And since VMware deprecated vCloud chargeback, it's a thing that's missed.
Well, now you can get it as part of VRA.
Yeah, okay.
So, how many of you guys were around when vMotion first came out? Greatest thing since white sliced toast at the time, stream your movie and watch it go.
Actually,
Hey, we're
I
in
think it was-
California, Steve. It's wholemeal bread.
Actually, I think it was the greatest thing since beer.
Oh, there we go. So,
Beer came before sliced bread.
do we have the same enthusiasm over the latest generation of vMotion?
Oh, yeah, it's so awesome. I love it.
The latest generation? No. They've been
Is
demoing it for
is
4
that the
years.
thing that they've been showing us for the last 3 years? Except they just renamed it.
Yes.
See, I was far more excited about the long-distance vMotion using Revelo from AWS to Google Compute that Mike Preston demoed when Revelo went live with their ESX support.
Oh, yeah, that was nice. Especially when you actually appreciate the technology behind it. I like that a lot. That was good.
But I mean, EMC/VMware/Revelo/ everybody's been demoing long-distance vMotion for years.
Indeed. At the
This
end of the
is
day,
not-
it is just vMotion.
It is just vMotion. We know how to do that. Now, if they vMotion vGPUs or GPUs, no, that would be news.
Yeah.
Storage vMotion would be nice to see too.
So the enhanced vMotion,
Yes.
but long distance. Can you imagine the completion time on that?
Actually, there's
Exactly.
there are actually
all
several
the parts
companies
are
working
already
on
there.
that.
You've got VDP to actually move your data across underneath. So the parts are there. They just need to look into it and basically dot and cross the letters.
Actually, there's a different type of company out there that is not VDP based, like a Velostrata and a few others. What they're doing is preceding their caches with easily accessed data. Like if you're going to boot a VM, it's going to bring over the boot blocks first. And it's pretty intelligent about what it brings over and then caches it locally. So what happens is it looks like it's boot running really immediately, but it's slowly pulling the data over as you grab it. So
Yeah.
it's really cool.
That's good. I like that. That's a similar sort of technology that AppV uses, where it will basically pre-cache stuff that it needs to run first. And it's nice to see that sort of technology filtering into other environments that actually enhance user performance. Because at the end of the day, that's the only metric that counts.
True, and that's actually, if you could do that, then you actually have a way of doing storage, vMotion, other things as well, in the midst of everything else you're doing. So it's like running while you're doing everything in the background that you need to get done. Because transferring data, if you're talking about terabytes of data, it's not going to happen fast. The speed of light is the speed of light. I'm sorry, physics can't be broken yet.
When they change the laws of physics, Captain.
You got to
beat me
change the
to
laws
it.
of physics.
I know a song about that.
I did a physics degree at university.
Yeah, but is it really not
I did a
making,
law degree. Yeah.
Is it not really making light go faster, but to prism it out into multiple streams to get the speed?
Interesting, but no.
So let's not design that right now. How about you saying that you were briefed about a lot of stuff before VMworld as non-disclosure kind of pre-briefing stuff. What's the coolest thing that you know has become available and become visible to other people today, this week? Because there's been a whole lot of things announced that are around the conference. What have you seen that's been really cool? I'll start down the other end with Steve because he's hardly got a word in edgewise.
That was by design.
Now
A
you've
lot more-
upset him.
A lot more analytics in tiering storage. There's a lot more companies that I've seen that are coming out with different methods to tier the storage automatic with different algorithms going on. Data gravity, I think, was one of them. That seemed pretty interesting. That's the one that jumps out of my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a new a new tier of monitoring coming in that's not really monitoring, they're more of an early warning, air raid siren type thing. Login vs API is an instance of that, whereby it will monitor the environments and you will be given a number, and that number, if that number suddenly starts to go up, you know there's a problem. So before you start getting the telephone calls ringing up and the flashing lights and thermonuclear bombs dropping all over you, you're actually already actively looking, and you can get your early warning systems out to send the missiles up to deflect.
Yeah. And I particularly like that that particular product, the Login vs API, is measuring end user experience rather than infrastructure load.
End user experience is the only metric that counts. If it does not matter if I have a poor experience, it does not matter that the IT department can show me all sorts of pretty graphs with wonderful bar charts and pie charts telling me how fantastic their latency and their bandwidth is. All I will say is poo-poo. I can't do my job, sort it.
The other thing that I've seen is there's a new, in talking about analytics, is actually the coolest stuff. Because now we've talked about machine learning, or companies have talked about machine learning for years. A lot of them have been aggregate numbers. They've been, okay, I got an average of what you normally do. I'll put a threshold on either side. Now there's companies coming out with real machine learning that are actually constantly learning for root causes. They're not just looking at, here's a threshold on either side, here is the root cause to what really caused that problem. And it may be something you never even thought about. And that one is actually pretty cool. And they're actually pulling it in, this particular company, it's Sios, is pulling it into topographical maps so that when you look at it, it's NOC ready. It's ready to be put in the network operations center. It's easy to see. You can do anything you want around it, around process, but it's like, oh, it turned red, now drill down and tells me, yeah, you know, that storage device went red because, you know, you were doing, you know, more IOPS than you normally did. And it's like tying into, oh, let's get rid of the false positives. It's like, yeah, you did 17 SV motions. Of course it is. So they're going to ignore those. So that's what machine learning is all about, is actually pulling in all those different sources of data and doing something kind of magical with it, to be honest. It's actually learning using more and better sources of data.
Learning and trending. I think that's going to be one of the big things too.
So this, of course, is the first of the two VMworlds for the year. We have VMworld in Barcelona in October, which I imagine I'll see some of you at. What are you hoping will be announced there? What do you think was missing from the announcements at this show that hopefully will be announced at the European, the EMEA show?
If it's anything like the previous VMworlds, they'll not announce anything.
You said you were going to be a happy, not a grumpy man today.
We used to have, when there was 6 months between the two VMworlds, Europe would announce the EUC, America would announce the virtualization environments. It is too close, really, now for them to have major announcements. I'm hoping that they unveil the covers off Photon a little bit more in Europe, because that, as Edward has already alluded to, has been missed here. They should have took an opportunity. You know, I mean, containers are the new sexy, and they could have had a chance to try and win hearts and minds there.
I would like to see two things. One is an NSX Lite. There's a major gap now that VCNS is dead, in that there is absolutely no security product from VMware other than NSX, but it's too heavyweight for most people. They need an NSX Lite that could fit into any existing vSphere environment and give the same thing that VCNS did.
So something for a smaller but compliance-heavy environment.
A compliance-heavy environment, a security-heavy environment of any size. And when you get to a certain size, you're going to need NSX anyways, but not everybody does. But you had all these products saying, oh, we'll do NSX. We've integrated with NSX. It's like, but it's not designed for my environment. I won't buy it.
What I'd also like to see there is they actually got the licensing correct.
Well, that would be nice.
If you did buy NSX Lite, you would not be precluded from actually upgrading to NSX full fat afterwards.
Now, that would be very nice.
I'd also like them to get the licensing correct so that if you are a customer who's purchased enterprise level or below rather than enterprise plus, and you've decided to build your environment on the eval licenses, you can actually license vSAN without having to go through hoops, which the hoops involve removing vSAN, then licensing, and then bringing back into the cluster, and then.
I think they're eventually going to hopefully fix that one. That's more of a bug than it is a.
No, it's actually by design.
Oh, that's horrible.
It's if you look at the way that the licensing layer is leveled, licensing on ESX high host is at the host level, and the licensing for vCenter is assigned at cluster, and the ESX hosts have no concept of cluster as their own. So when you try to license an ESX high host that has a distributed switch on it, it says you have unlicensed features, even though higher up the stack you are licensed. It's a redesign of the licensing engine, it's not a bug.
I would also like them to take the advantage. The second thing I'd like to see them announce is actually they did the whole cloud-centric app university lead-in. It would be really nice if they actually had a program to help me go from where I am today to cloud-native apps.
So you've not been across to the DevOps area that is across from us in the hang space is the DevOps area and theatre and lab space. You've not been across to see that?
I have.
And it's not completely satisfied your requirements?
No, not at all. I need people to be out. There's a lot of developers out there developing applications for what they're doing. There's a lot of organizations that want to go to cloud native but don't know how to get there. That's the transformation. But if you can't convince the developers to change the way they're developing to a more distributed environment and educate them, guide them, provide them a workshop they can go through to learn these skills, they're not going to go there because that's not what they know. Developers are pretty focused on what they know.
Also, to look at that from the alternate side of the scale is that infrastructure guys, on a whole, don't code.
That's right.
See, which is going to be easier, teaching the infrastructure guys to code, or getting the developer guys to change their viewpoint and their way of life?
Well, that's the thing why I like Photon Platform is because it's vSphere with Photon OS on it. What do you have to learn from an infrastructure guy? You rack, stack, plug it into vCenter, and there you go. I mean, it's simple. But from
it's a more evolutionary paradigm.
Exactly. But if you're doing with OpenStack, yeah, absolutely. But if you do it with Photon Platform, it can't be that much harder. You know all the basic underlying infrastructure already.
But I think where I take Steve's question is there was some expectation that DevOps was going to mean the end of the ops guy. And I think what we're recognizing is that it means that the developers are going to get a better understanding of ops and the ops guys are going to get a better understanding of dev, but nobody is replacing one another, but they're becoming more close together and, God forbid, becoming almost a team.
Well, actually, I haven't seen that in any organization I've talked to, but that's all right.
I've only seen that in one place, and that was the Phoenix report.
The Phoenix Project.
The Phoenix Project, that's it.
In my personal opinion, when it comes to DevOps, you're getting into beforehand, engineering was the cream of the crop. You made it to engineering, you were the dude. Now that we're getting into DevOps and we're not just writing a single application, the operations group, it's going to be a 60-40 split with operations leading the way. And that is a ego bruising that I'm not sure developers are quite ready to accept.
Well, the thing is, it's not, and that's in my opinion. The tools exist today for me to take any application, determine the services that I need to have available. Matter of fact, this is built right into vSphere today. I can use Vin. It has it right there. The Virtual Infrastructure Navigator actually breaks it down to, you got a RabbitMQ server, you got an SQL server, you have this protocol, that service. It tells me what I need with inside of all my VMs for my application, and it figures out all the dependencies for me. What I'm talking about with training is like, use that as the basis as a guide to migrate to this new environment. And by the way, the developers will be all over that. Yeah, they used an operational tool to get there, but they have a guidepost. They have a couple of lanes they can go through that would be much easier for them than anything else. They'll use the tools. They're not operational folks and never will be, in my opinion.
We're running into our last couple of minutes, so I'm just going to give you each an opportunity to have some closing comments without talking for 15 minutes. So, Tom, what are you closing thoughts, and is there anything in particular you want to see at VMworld next year that will actually make you happy to be here?
One of my major disappointments this year was the hang space. It reminds me of a high school cafeteria. It's not somewhere where you come to relax. You know, the seats aren't comfortable. The vast majority of previous VMworlds, you've had comfortable chairs, you've had throws, cushions, and one of the things that you need is somewhere just to rest your weary legs. When you've walked the floor for a couple of hours, you need to sit down on a comfortable chair and just kick back and relax. And that's something that is missing from the conference this year.
Edward, what would you like to see?
I would like to see the keynotes more focused.
I didn't want to say about the keynotes.
No, the keynotes are great, but I think that they need to have, like, for example, Photon platform should have been the focus for the day. They mentioned we got a bunch of dot releases. Like, that's great. You got a bunch of dot releases, but that's not the big important stuff. I want to kind of see more flash.
You want to see some revolution, not evolution.
I want to see revolution, not you're right.
To me, keynotes should be, yeah, we've released this, we've released that, and they should basically give a little taster of where they're going. You know, why would I want to be interested in VMware this time next year, in this time in 4 years? You know, are you going to still own the space? And it's a sad showing that when the only comments of the keynote, of Monday's keynote, that actually generated any interest was the fact that everyone was getting really upset about on-premise and on-premises.
That's why I had on-prem, on-premise, and on-premises all on the bingo card. Steve, what would you like to see for next year?
Condiments. Can we get some ketchup, mustard, or something with the food? Going back to the keynote, if you're going to bring up a customer, let the customer dig into deep of this is how we're using the technology to be able to distribute satellite or football games or something. I was kind of really disappointed with DirecTV came up there with no real value to add.
Yeah, but they did admit the Pacino fight was rubbish.
Well, if you had Progressive, you should have brought Flow.
So on those bombshells, we're going to try and not stutter and draw to a close the virtualization practice panel here at VMworld 2015 on the vBrownbag stage. Do come visit the virtualization practice at thevirtualizationpractice.com, and thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome to this side of the screen.